Yay. So yeah, you should have gotten a message that the webinar is being recorded. Hi, everybody. Looks like we're going to getting logged in. Hey, as you come into the meeting, go ahead and just say hey in the chat so we know that you can find your chat button. Part of what's really weird in a webinar with Zoom is you actually have to change the pull down. So when you open your chat, it'll automatically just chat with us as panelists. But if you would like everybody to see your chat, you do have to change the pull down to panelists and attendees. So make sure that you change the pull down to panelists and attendees if you want everybody to see what your chat says. And we will be using the chat feature today, so make sure that you can find it. Welcome, everyone. Also know that we are recording this webinar. You should have gotten a notice about that, but just in case you didn't, know that we are recording the webinar as we go through today, because we are hearing that there's some weather going on out there. And so we know that some people are not going to be able to join us today and will want to watch it later. So do know that it is being recorded. You'll be able to interact today via the chat or through the Q&A. Either one of those will work. I'll be keeping an eye on those throughout the hour today. We're going to be talking about developing a system to support school-wide interventions throughout the majority of our presentation. And just so you know, this is brought to you by Canyon Professional Development, which runs out of Grand Canyon University. So we're so happy that you're here. So Brad, if you want to go to Mary's slide, that would be great. So I have a real treat here for you today. I don't know how many of you have had the chance to meet Miss Mary Matheson before, but man, is she amazing. And she's going to talk to you a little bit just about Spark University. And I wanted to bring this to your attention now because it's been available in Arizona for quite some time. But COVID, of course, has made us change a lot of things and has also allowed Mary to go online. So she can actually now work with teachers outside of Arizona. So I thought it would be a good opportunity for her to share a little bit about Spark U, which is called Spark, a teaching revolution. So we're going to play a little short video and then Mary's going to talk to you. Uh-oh, we're not getting sound, Brad. Oh, you know why? You're muted. You need to unmute yourself. Perfect.
Teaching is hard work. Teachers flatline or burn out and lose their spark. Spark U was created to reignite that spark and give teachers the tools to equip themselves for meaningful success in the classroom. Spark University is a hands-on training providing teachers at every career stage with proven classroom leadership strategies. Spark U empowers graduates with a set of powerful skills to renew a sense of passion, pride, and purpose. These are the sparks that ignite measurable improvement in the classroom and meaningful change in their own well-being. Our mission at Spark U is to excite teachers who will experience measurable success in the classroom, sparked by an impassioned spirit. Spark U is for teachers at every career stage. If you're feeling burned out, need a refresher, are new to teaching, or just want some encouragement professionally, Spark U is for you. The Spark U curriculum is designed by teachers for teachers. SparkU is 5 days of rigorous professional development that moves well beyond theory to introduce a foundational roadmap of actionable tools and techniques for successful classroom management, improved lesson planning, and effective classroom instruction. Every module of the SparkU curriculum is developed from proven past practices based on real-world teaching experiences. I appreciate actually being given techniques and not just theory. I've learned more this week than in my last 8 years of professional development. This week-long class was terrific. It allowed me to reflect on my classroom, where I needed to improve, and what effective teaching looks like. Thank you for putting the spark back into my teaching career. Take the next step to ignite your own teaching revolution. Contact us for details on scheduling your SparkU event at sparkuonline.com.
Mary, that was so fun to see. I even saw a few of my former teachers from when I was a principal in that video. And I can tell you, I wanted to bring this to everybody today because it really did make a difference with them. So Mary, what would you like to tell us in addition?
Well, thanks so much for having me, Carol. First of all, GCU has been such a great partner the last few years with Spark University, and really it truly has been a teaching revolution. This year particularly, and you spoke to it earlier, that now because of COVID, we are able to offer SparkU to beyond the boundaries of Arizona. We've been in Nevada, we've been in Wisconsin, but this time we're going to offer it virtually. We did it last summer and it was a huge success. So who's SparkU for? Well, if you're an instructional leader and you're thinking about hiring a bunch of new teachers that maybe are emergency certed or have changed grade levels or taken a year off, SparkU is for those teachers, man. We've got 1 week of intense training. I just know that they will be set up for success after 1 week of SparkU. It's also for renewal. Teachers that just really are burned out, and there are going to be a lot of them this year. I hope for the first month that no one does anything for the whole month. And then when they start coming back after the 4th of July, they start to think about how they're going to reach back for better. Because I think we have a great opportunity because of COVID and because of the season we've been in to reach back for better. Every one of your teachers on your campuses are better than they were in 2019. And Spark is just going to take that and unpack it and make them better with all the tools that they've learned this year and all the things that they've done. I'm really confident that SparkU is for the person that needs just a renewal. So Shonda's going to give you a flyer, but I just want to highlight the 2 most important dates in July. The first one is going to be in Arizona, and we're going to run an in-person July 12th through the 16th. And the site is yet to be determined because we're still trying to deal with the current realities of COVID and all of that. But July 12th through the 16th, we'll advertise the heck out of where that's going to be. But what I'm really excited also for those of you who can't get to Arizona and can't travel, our virtual Spark is from July 19th to the 23rd. And we will be able to spark you up even virtually. And I'm excited because this could reach beyond the boundaries, like I said, of Arizona. Shonda's going to give you a link to a flyer that also we have many opportunities for instructional leaders or SparkU for instructional leaders that are going to be happening virtually at the beginning of June and the beginning of September. So I figure that if you want to wrap up your year with a little bit of a spark in June, great. But a lot of times it's very popular to do it right before evaluation season. And that SparkU for instructional leaders is really dedicated to effective supervision, conferencing, and evaluation. And we really hit that pretty hard in early September, right before evaluation season. The other one that I'm really excited about is something we call SparkU Connect. And these are the teachers that have had Spark before, but not necessarily, but they're just 1 hour long webinars that kind of connects our current reality to some SparkU concepts. And we're going to be launching our first SparkU Connect on February 15th. All that information is on the website, but it's just 1 hour that the teachers just can start to look at sparking themselves up again and getting ready for either the rest of this year or the beginning of next fall. So many opportunities. Spark University is alive and well, and I'm so excited about this year because, as I heard from a podcast this summer, we don't want to reach back for normal, because we do, but we want to reach back for better. And that's what Spark U is all about. So thank you to GCU for being a great partner. And I look forward to hearing from many of you. If you're really interested and wants me to contact you directly, please put your email in the chat box and I will reach out to you directly to see. Otherwise, all our information is on the website. So thanks, Carol. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mary. I love that. Back to better. Back to
Reach
better.
back for better.
I'm totally grabbing that and going to steal it. That's what I do. I just steal
You know
everything.
what? Guess what? I stole it. So
yeah, that's good. That's what education's all about, right? And that's part of what we have here today. Brad Mitchell is here to share with you just some tips and techniques that he has developed over his years as both an administrator and an educator, to just talk a little bit about it really is about getting, isn't it, Brad, back to better, right? So we're going to be looking at what can we be looking at? What have we learned? And where can we use that in this upcoming year to begin to design interventions for our students so that they'll be ready to conquer the world as they also get back to better. So Brad, thank you for being here. I will turn this over to you and let you introduce yourself to the group.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm Brad Mitchell. I've been in education for 23 years. I had an interesting journey in education. I started in the business field as a salesperson to colleges and universities, and then felt like I was getting a call to be a teacher. So ended up being a math teacher at a public school outside of Chicago. And then I did that for about 5 years. I had an opportunity to start a school within a school there at, it was called Naperville North High School. And then I moved into kind of an administrative position as an instructional coordinator for math and business. And then my next job, since I can't hold a job, I was an instructional coach where I coached struggling teachers. I supported teachers in the classroom with strategies and integrating technology. I provided different training. So that was great. And then another job I had was department chair of math. So I kind of went back to my math roots. And then I had the opportunity to come back to my alma mater at Timothy Christian High School. So I graduated from Timothy Christian in 1989, and coming back was just a huge blessing, but also a little awkward because I was a boss to some of my teachers. So that was a little weird, but still, it was an awesome journey to get back here. And I've been here for the past 9 years. So that's kind of where I am. So I have a couple of goals for us. I have one goal for us today, and then a takeaway that hopefully you guys will participate in. So the goal really is to gather ideas about how other schools support students. So I'm one person, and I'm going to share my journey with you. But I think that there are a lot of other people that have really good ideas. So I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to kind of share that as well. But really the goal is for you to identify what is your first and maybe your next step to support students more effectively as you move into next year. So those are the couple things that I have for us today. So, one of the things that people say is the smartest person in the room is the room. So what I want us to try to do, and I'm going to be completely honest, I have no idea if any of this is going to work. I'm going to be quite frank with you. I've never done any of these things before in a webinar like this. So we're going to give it a shot and see what happens. So on menti.com, it's a great tool to use for a lot of people. I'd like for you to introduce yourself. And so what I'd like for you to do is, if you have a phone, you can use your phone. If you have a computer, I think we're going to drop the link in the chat. But if you go to menti.com and type in the code 2901778, or just click the link, you should be good to go. So in the introduction, go ahead and put your name, your school, and location where you're at. You don't have to put whether or not you have a snow day. We have a snow day today. Years in education, the school demographics at your front, and maybe one question that you have. So I'll give you a couple minutes. Let me go here and see if it is indeed working. So I think it's working. Hopefully
Yes.
it's working.
It is working. I was able to get to it. And so you guys, if you go back a slide, Brad, they can also just hold up your camera on your smartphone to the QR code that he put there. And it'll take you right there. It'll say, do you want to go to that link? Click the link, and it makes it super easy.
So I'll give everybody just a couple minutes to put that information in, and then just take an opportunity to read through these as they pop up, to see if there's somebody maybe nearby, to see if there's somebody who you might know.
I see a lot of friends, people that I know.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Some high school, public high school, private high schools. Very good. All right.
Oh, more coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we got somebody from Wisconsin. Oh my gosh, Ron, are you freezing to death? You probably are. Lake Havasu. Nice. Oh, a couple from Lake Havasu High School. Nice to have you. Oh, this is a great idea. This is so easy to use, Brad. They
It
totally
really
could use
is.
this with their faculty if they haven't done this.
Yep, I use it with my staff quite a bit. Yeah, the Arizona folks have no idea what a snow day is. What is that? I don't know that definition. Please
Hey,
help me.
it snowed. We were camping this last weekend, Brad, and it actually snowed where we were at up near Cottonwood.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
As people wrap up putting that in, we got an email. My son goes to school at Lipscomb in Nashville, and we got an email from the president saying what they're doing about all the snow. It's like 2 inches. I said, I think they're going to be okay with our, I think we have like 24 inches on the ground right now.
That's great.
All right. So let me, so we'll keep, hopefully you had a chance to kind of take a gander and see what other people's backgrounds, schools they're from. Maybe you have a friend in there. Let me go back here. So thank you for introducing yourself. I really appreciate it. So really there's going to be 4 parts to this little talk, and probably the largest part is going to be Timothy's journey. So I can kind of share with you a little bit about how Timothy got to where they are. So Timothy Christian is a preschool through 12th grade building. I'm in charge of the high school. We have a principal who's in charge of preschool through 8th grade. We sit in 3 different buildings. So we have an elementary school building, our middle school building, and our high school building. And so what we'll do is I'll talk through kind of each of those buildings and those journeys that we've gone through. And then I'll talk a little bit about what we learned. And then I'll give you guys an opportunity to share. And then there'll be kind of a call to action for you to identify the next steps for yourself. And I'll give you a little strategy to do that. All right, so beginning with the end in mind, I just want to tell you where we're at. And because this is not fantasy, this is actually a real world school that we live in. And there's no perfection. I kind of want to give you kind of where we're at with this supporting students. So if we had to look at a grade from, 1 to 10, if I had to scale us 1 to 10, if we took a look at our elementary school, our elementary school is really knocking it out of the park. And if it wasn't for this year of COVID just kind of throwing off everything, I'm guessing we'd probably be even a little higher, like 9.5 or close to 10, because our elementary school is doing a phenomenal job. Keeping things real, our middle school, on the other hand, is not doing great. There's a number of issues that happen within the middle school with regard to past leadership and protection of the middle school around change. And so they are kind of at the beginning stages of supporting students academically. So they have some growing to do. And then the high school where I am, we've made quite a bit of progress, but we still have a little bit of ways to go with how we can support students 100% effectively, or give myself a score of a 9 or 10 out of 10. So, but I want to share with you a little bit about kind of where we started. We really started with our elementary school students. We really did believe that the foundation was critically important for our students. We have about 518 students in our elementary school. In our middle school, we have about 170 students, and in the high school we have about 400 students. So that's kind of the size. We're a decent size private school, but we really started with our elementary school. We did that probably about 10 years ago. And the key things that we started with were the schedule and staffing. We found that those are the two areas that we could have the most impact. If we could make some adjustments to the schedule, how we use time, and how we used our staff, we could really have a big impact. So when we looked at our schedule, we talked about scheduling some big rocks first, like literacy block and math block. So we had two 90-minute blocks, so a 90-minute block of literacy block and a 90-minute block of math. And then what we did is, after we scheduled those two big blocks in each of our classes from kindergarten through 6th grade, we then peppered in the smaller blocks. It's not by importance necessarily, but it's a switch to how we scheduled before. Historically, what we did is we scheduled all the specials and then tried to fit in all little pieces of literacy and reading and writing and math. And so it was a little bit jumbled. So what we did is we decided we're going to create a large block of time for literacy, a large block of time for math, and we wanted to make sure that it was somewhat staggered throughout our day, so that we could still do the art, music, PE, and recess, and all the other specials that our elementary school students needed throughout their day. So that's kind of how we did our staffing. We decided we were going to prioritize our learning in literacy and math, and schedule that time and make it important. The second thing we do is we looked at our staffing, and not our teachers necessarily, but our aides. So we had a number of aides in our building. We had parents. We're really blessed with a community that's supportive. So we have a number of aides that are certified teachers, but are parents. They're at home. They don't necessarily want to plan or do the grading, but they wanted to help. But what we were doing is we were using them kind of haphazardly. We were using them as an extra pair of hands for our teachers, whether it be making copies or cutting things out or stickering or decorating the room. We had them do different things like that. And there was a little bit of time where we had these aides work one-on-one with students. And so that's kind of how our aide model worked. So we wanted to shift that a little bit. We wanted to shift it so that our aides were used more intentionally, so more focused on instruction rather than just being an extra pair of hands to do administrative tasks. So rather than having them work one-on-one with kids, we wanted these aides to work in small groups with students. So we were leveraging the expertise of those aides to help a smaller group of students rather than just one-on-one. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we really made the magic happen by using those aides. The next thing we did is we wanted to make sure that we were making progress on our students. And what we did is we were using, and this was again years back, we used Ames Web for all of our students to evaluate where our students were academically. Another tool that we used was the Iowa Basic Skills Test, but we found that because of the culture of our school and because of the kind of the makeup of it, most of our kids were at the 90th percentile and higher, which didn't really give us that good of information. So we kept giving this assessment. We kept saying, hey, we're doing great, but it really didn't help our students who were struggling. So we had to make that adjustment to Ames Web, and that's the data that we really looked at to make sure that our students were keeping up. So once we took a look at our schedule, our staff, and we looked at our assessments, we then developed this thing called tier time. So what we did then was we took 30 minutes out of those literacy blocks and math blocks 3 days a week and provided targeted instruction for both math and reading. And so based on the assessments, we then grouped students. And what we were able to do, just with creative scheduling and creative use of our staff, we were able to kind of get, during that tier time, we were able to get 7 teachers at each grade level to support our students. So we have an advanced learning teacher who would take our students who are doing extremely well. We had a support staff person, an ESS person, an educational support staff person who would really support the students who were academically struggling. We had our teachers then work with different, maybe a little bit larger groups, but it was mostly about review. And then we had aides having smaller groups that maybe weren't necessarily needing the academic support from our academic support staff or our special ed teachers, but maybe those kids kind of in the middle, though, that they needed a little bit of extra help. So we were able to really leverage what we had. And so those 7 teachers per grade level were used at each of the grade levels from kindergarten all the way through 6th grade. So how we managed it, we were creative with it, we made sure that it was a priority, and we got a lot of our students a great deal of help. So right now, what we're doing is we're using now map testing for all of our students rather than Ames Web for everyone. We still use Ames Web, but it's just to focus on progress monitoring of our students in our special education program. We regroup every 6 to 7 weeks. So we use kind of that map data and then kind of formative assessment data to regroup. And then we have these data days 3 times a year with our staff. And that, quite frankly, that is an amazing picture. Is basically every kid on a popsicle stick, and then they put those popsicle sticks in group, and they literally spend time with every kid in every grade, looking at their data to make sure that they're placed properly and getting the appropriate support. So, what we found is we found that reading is really less fluid, and the kids who really need support continue to need additional support, but they are indeed growing. So moving on to the high school. So our high school, as I mentioned, we have about 400 students, and about when I got here about 9 years ago, what we had 7 minutes at the end of the day that were used to, quote, support students. And really, it was a handful of students who were motivated to get extra help coming in at the end of the school day to get help from the teachers. Everybody else in the school basically just hung out together. And that was great for maybe the culture, but not super great for academics, because really it was only the kids that wanted the extra help. They would show up at the end of the school day. So we made a shift. We made a shift to what we called office hours. And we offered that just 2 times a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, for 30 minutes. And this was a little bit of I would say, maybe a scheduling, I wouldn't call it a nightmare, but it was a scheduling, had some scheduling calisthenics, because what we had was we needed everybody with a spot. We had our juniors and seniors maybe in larger locations, but we took attendance, we made sure everyone was there. And then students were able during office hours to go visit different teachers, because every teacher was responsible for 12 to 15 students. So they would leave their office hours, go to another teacher's to get help. This was great because every teacher was available. Every teacher could get help or could give help to students that needed it. We did a little bit more with really asking kids to come, but it was still mostly students volunteering to come if they needed it. It was a great time to make up quizzes and tests, but again, it was a time that everybody had available, which was really nice, all at the same time. But we wanted to kick it up a notch. So what we did is we changed it to something we called focus period. So this was 3 days a week, and we would have had it this year, but COVID. Last year we had it 3 days a week for 25-minute periods. And this was a little different. What this allowed, we also bought a program that students had to, the students could sign up into a teacher's class if they offered a support time, but also could require students to go visit teachers. So if, for example, a student, say a kid named Alex, would be struggling in class, what this teacher could do is force Alex to come to their class. And so a student would look on their focus period app and they say, where do I go? I have to go to Mr. Mitchell's class to get help. So it was a lot more focused and a lot more pointed. Our juniors and seniors had a lot more freedom, because if they were doing what they were supposed to do, we gave them kind of larger areas for them to kind of hang out. But if they were falling underneath a certain GPA, or certain grade level, they had to go to a special room where they got extra support. So that's what we had been doing. Next year, we're going to call it Focus Period 2.0. Well, we'll have a lot of those systems in place, but now it will be offered every single day other than just 3 times a week. And what we'll then do is we'll be a lot more focused with a couple of our days, and our younger students. We'll provide some like academic training for our freshmen in particular, and maybe some of our needy sophomores. So we'll be able to use that extra time, that focus period time, to do things like that. We'll also provide our, again, juniors and seniors, because if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, we know that in a short time, they'll be off on their own. They'll be allowed to do different things that they want. They'll be able to go to the gym, play basketball. They'll be able to hang out with their friends. But again, if they're not able to, they will be forced to go get help from a teacher. Lastly, our middle school. Our middle school is our biggest struggle. What happened with middle school, and this happens perhaps with a number of middle schools, they couldn't decide on which model to use, the elementary school model or the high school model. They tried longer blocks of time. So they scheduled longer blocks for their core areas, social studies, science, math, and English. They scheduled those longer periods of time in order to allow support to happen and differentiation to happen during the class period, but it ended up not happening. They still have homeroom. So they were thinking, all right, maybe this homeroom is the thing that they could use to support students, but it ended up not being an academic support whatsoever. It just was a time for students to get caught up with homework and make sure that they were getting the information about school that they needed, and not really the academic help. But next year, I know that's something that they are really working on. And so they're going to transform homework into support time. So it's going to be pretty similar to focus period, but it's not going to have the focus period app where teachers can pull students, but it's a lot smaller building. So getting a teacher or getting a student is a lot easier in the middle school than it is the high school. So those are kind of our journey from elementary, middle, and high school. But let me just share part 2, what we learned.
Hey, Brad, before you go on, can you tell me again, what was the name of the app in case people were interested and they wanted to look at it?
Yeah, so it's called a Focus Period app, and it actually is made by, it started at Grand Rapids Christian High School in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So they have a focus period, and they developed that app, and then I found out about it, and they shared it with me and tweaked it for us a little bit, and have been using it ever since.
Cool.
If you're interested in finding out about it, I can get you that information.
Yeah, I'm sure people would be interested in learning more about it.
Yeah.
Great.
So what we learned is really start with the research. Especially our elementary school team, they started with Hattie's book, Visible Learning. They did a book study on it. They really wanted to make sure that they had a great foundation in what does core instruction look like? And then on top of that, what could they do to support students? What Works Clearinghouse was a great resource, and also National Center on Intentional Intervention. So those are a few resources that I know our teachers looked at in terms of finding the right support. And again, all support looks different. So our environment, it looks different than every single one of your environments. And you just have to take what you get and then adapt it to what will work for you, just like we did. I would imagine that there's no other system that looks like ours around there. There's probably small tweaks, some things that look similar, but we know that there's things that also look different. The other thing we learned is you have to get creative with your time and your staff. So I love this quote from Raising the Bar, Closing the Gap. The idea that schools can provide students with additional time and support relies more on determination and will than on additional resources. So, even as, I don't know what people think about private schools, but it's not like we have money flying all over the place. We have to be extremely strategic and creative with all of our resources. But we, as a leadership, decided that it was vitally important to support our students. So we had to get creative with what we did, and we had the determination and will to make that happen. So really that's the piece that's needed. And then the creativity to figure out how you want to use your resources. And then this is the big thing for the high school, because high school teachers, for those of you guys who work in high school, they really find their time as precious. They want to make sure that they have their students for their time, their period, and they don't want anything to take away from that. But what we're trying to get our teachers to do, and we're still on that journey, is we're trying to help teachers understand that support time really isn't lost time, it's instructional time. And if they can understand that, they won't be as protective with their class time. Because as we develop these things like focus period, we're pulling minutes away from their class, but although their overall minutes is less, the time that they're instructing students that really need it is increasing. So if you can help teachers make that shift, they're less protective of their own special class time.
Hey, you had a good question in the chat from
Yeah,
Elaine. She says,
yeah.
during the high school support period times, how do you account for the locations of the students? So like if a parent calls and wants them out, a lockdown situation, anything like that.
Yeah, so great. The Focus Period app has locations of each student. So we basically had to create homerooms for every student so that we knew where they would be. And so the Focus Period locks them into their to that room. And then what happens if they sign up for another location, they sign up for that Focus Period, and the Focus Period app then tells anybody that wants to know where they signed up to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it sounds like that app's super helpful. And we did something similar whenever I was a principal at a public high school. And it was a lot of logistics, just trying to make sure we didn't have an app. That was in the days pre-app, but yeah. It's called the Focus Period app, Rebecca, and we'll send out more information about it when we send the follow-up email out to all participants. So,
and when we started with office hours, we had this huge Google sheet
yep,
with
that's what we
every
did too.
single room, and it was rough. It took a lot of programming. It was not good. It's worth spending the extra money on the app, frankly, because the man hours that it took to manage that and make sure that it was right, and when it broke, somebody had to fix it. It was a mess.
Yeah, we did the same with ours, and I had about 1,800 kids. So, take it and multiply it by a lot, but it was so worth it. You're right. I love this quote, and just to take us back to where you were at, you're right.
Yeah.
As soon as teachers started to see that as just additional time to really get deep with instruction with kids, it made a world of difference. So thank you.
Yeah. So really, the last thing that we learned was you have to prioritize your people and resources, and then use data to advocate for more. So one of the things that we're blessed with a person that's kind of in charge of all of our ESS staff. What she was able to do is she was able to really take a look at the data, and she assessed our kids using Ames Web at first, and then she had the green, she had the yellow, and she had the red. And she, over time, showed that the red totally went away and the yellow shrunk. And so when you present that information to a board, or you present that information to other leadership, what they say is like, how can you say this is a bad idea? Shouldn't we continue to do more of this rather than less of it? Shouldn't you support this? So supporting it with data, and even supporting it with individual students. So you have a student, you present that student and say, listen, this is a student that struggled. This person was part of tier time, and now the student is assessing at this particular level. So once you have these resources, once you've made those adjustments, make sure that you use data to advocate for more. And a couple little corollaries that we even forgot about at times is make sure that you're coaching and training teachers on how to use aids. Don't assume that they know how to use them for instructional purposes. Make sure that everyone understands the expectations and how aids are used. And then don't forget about the aids. Make sure you train the aids so they know what they can and can't do. What do they have the power to do? And what do you want to make sure that maybe the teacher has more control? And then finally, training teachers on how to use extra time. And this is the middle school example that I was thinking of. Is we gave our middle school teachers extra time, but we were not super intentional about making sure they truly understood how to use that extra time to support students. So just a couple of corollaries about what we learned. So Carol, you've been giving me a couple questions, but maybe I'll just give a couple minutes to post some questions in the chat if people have any, and if nothing gets posted in the next 30 seconds, we'll keep moving.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've been keeping you pretty up to date. They're excited. They want the app information for sure.
All right.
But as we're waiting on them too, you're so right. That is definitely a step that we missed when we were doing some intervention, and that was working with our aides to help them understand what their role was in intervention and to give them the skills that they needed to feel comfortable really digging into what the students need. So, and
Yeah.
also finding ways to share the data with them was super important.
Yeah. And sharing the data with everybody, because what that does is that builds momentum, right? When you're sharing that with the staff and you're saying, hey, this is what we're doing, this is the impact that it's making on students, like you feel that energy of like, yeah, we're doing this. It's work, but we're doing it.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't see any questions popping up,
Right.
but I'll let you know if that changes.
All right. So, you know, as I mentioned, I think that, you know, I have one story, and I think each of you have another story. So, what I want to do is I want to use a tool called Padlet. I don't know if you've heard of it before, but it's a nice kind of a tool where you can post information. And so what I want all of you, each of you to do is I want you to take a couple minutes and think and answer the question, what do you do now as a school to academically support students? I know emotional learning is a whole nother presentation altogether. Right now, I just want us to focus on kind of academically supporting students. And so what I'll have you do is once you take a couple minutes, think about, all right, what is it that you do as a school and kind of post that information. I'm going to, I'll then, once you post, I'll show you in a second what that looks like. There's a title. If you could just put your name as the title and then post how you support students academically. I'll give a few minutes for you to read everybody else's post, and then go ahead and if you want to comment or like a post, you can do that. You can just click on the little heart, and then we'll review a little bit some of the ones that maybe had the most likes.
And Brad, we did have a question come in asking about student-centered technology and how you use that to leverage formative assessment. So maybe people could also put in their Padlet post if they're using any good technology tools. That would be really awesome.
Yep, that would be great. Yeah, our high school is one-to-one with iPads. Next year, our 6th through 8th grade will be one-to-one with iPads. We have devices all over the place. Really blessed in that way.
Great.
So so if you are an elementary school, middle school, high school, each of the Padlets is set up for you specifically. So it's designed so that you can talk to the similar grade level as yourself. So if you're elementary school, go ahead and scan the QR code for elementary school, or click on the corresponding link in the chat for your different grade levels. And so, for example, this is the elementary Padlet, the middle school Padlet. Can you see this or not?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the high school Padlet. So it looks like one person posted already. So there's a little plus here on the lower right-hand corner. Go ahead and click that. It'll open up a little box. Go ahead and type your name in the title, and then write something as the answer to the question. What do you do as a school to academically support students? And then go ahead and comment if you like, or click the heart if you like what other people have written. Okay, so I'll start with 3 minutes. At 1:45, I'll come back.
Looks like high school's going strong. Need somebody to join in the middle school and oh, there goes elementary. It's going great.
Someone asked to see the QR codes again.
Yep.
Don't forget to, in the chat, ladies and gentlemen, you can click the links in the chat as well. We'll take you where you need to be. And you can open all three if you want to look at all three. That's what I did because I'm just nosy that way. I want to see what's going on at all levels.
Yeah, go right ahead. I would encourage everybody to do that too, is click on each one, open those up in tabs on your computer and take a gander.
Oh, yeah, this is elementary. That's interesting. There's a post there about phonics. and the importance of that.
Mhm.
So I added a couple comments so they can go back to theirs now and see what the comments are and answer them, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Tandy, it looks like you might be alone in middle school. Do you want to jump over to either high school or elementary? Because you've got really good stuff to share, but nobody's joining you. Wow. Okay, I just learned something new. PDF annotator like Camel, KML.
Hmm.
Whoever posted that, that's just a program where they can just write on PDFs, I guess. Oh, Cami. Oh, thanks, Dennis. Oh, very cool.
Hmm.
Oh, good. Tandy, you moved over to high school. Good.
Yeah. Thanks, Tandy. Yeah, freshman success class. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. 30-minute tutorial time in the morning, 8 to 8:30.
Mhm.
A lot of people are doing similar, that intervention time during the week. It seems like that's pretty popular and probably effective.
Yeah.
Oh, Helena, in elementary, so you're saying that so the teachers review the data and create action plans, like action plans for the grade level or action plans for individual students? – 95%. Wow.
Oh, there's the Cami for Chrome. Somebody put a link in there.
Yeah. It's in the, yeah, Corey put that in there. Thanks, Corey.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Oh, this is great.
You know what else I'm thinking about as they're doing this?
Yeah.
It would be a great way to collect data, just to have kids join on a Padlet and just kind of, almost like a little formative assessment. Somebody asked about the technology tool, right? Like you could use this as just a real quick collect data
Totally.
on where kids are at.
Totally. So Padlet is free, but you only get a certain number of Padlets before you have to start paying for it. If you use it quite a bit for different classes, it's probably worth the money. Same thing for Menti. It's free with 3 slides, and then if you get more than 3 slides, then you have to make a new one. But again, if it's something you use quite a bit, it's worth dropping a little money on.
Yeah, that's
good. Hopefully you guys got a chance to read through some of those things. We'll go ahead and roll on, because I want to make sure we have time to get to the commitment part of it. So the last thing, hopefully this gave you a little bit of information about what other people are doing, and that might be different than you, and hopefully maybe technology tools. But what I would like you to do is I would like you to think, and this is not something that we have a lot of time to do, especially as leadership and principals, is time to just sit, think, and reflect. But I want you to really think about what's the next thing that you would like to do to support students. What's the next step that you want to take to support students more effectively? It looks like everybody's doing something, but unless you're at a 10 out of 10, there's probably a little bit more to do. So I want you to think about that. And so I'm going to go back to Menti, and I'm going to switch. I'm going to go back to, there we go. Go to the next slide. Go ahead and I want you to think about and post, what do you want your next step to be? What the second thing I want you to do, so post on menti.com, go back to the same tab we were at before. But the second thing I want you to do, and this is a trick that I learned at like a youth group camp probably 20 years ago, is write yourself a note that you'll open later. So you decide when this is, but send yourself a scheduled email titled, "Did you do it?" So whatever it is that you decided you were going to do, send yourself a scheduled email. I know you can do it in Gmail. I know you can do it in Outlook. Although I don't exactly know how to do it in Outlook because that's not my email client. But whatever you type in Menti as your commitment of what to do next, put on your list of things to do, and then schedule an email that's going to come to you maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks from now, to ask yourself the question, did you do it? It's a great way to hold yourself accountable, to make sure that the step that you committed to do will indeed be done. So go ahead and do that. So post at menti.com what you feel like, what's the next thing you need to do for your students, next thing to investigate, next thing to, is there somebody you need to talk to? So if you can figure out what that is, go think through that a little bit, post it on Menti, copy that into an email, and delay send that to yourself.
The other thing, if they don't know how to delay send an email, you can just go forward on your calendar and create an appointment on your calendar with that information on your calendar.
Another great idea.
Set a reminder.
Yeah, it's another great idea.
That app. You know, that's a great question. You see that, how do we support students not doing well in elective classes? That is you really have to think differently about that, don't you? Because it's not a class they have to like graduate or move forward necessarily, except for the credit, right?
Yeah. And the other challenge I feel like even with the elective teacher is that a lot of the elective teachers aren't teaching like 2 classes. Like our elective teachers were at a small school are teaching, they have like 4 to 5 preps.
Yeah.
So it's not, their time is so stretched already. So it's not like if they have a small group session with, you know, a math teacher can have a small group session with algebra students and can pull from 3 different classes. Whereas with an elective class, it's not like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot about building capacity with teachers and support staff. I agree. Like you can't do it by yourself as the leader. You've got to empower your people that work with you to do what needs to be done.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mentor groups for 6th grade. Nice.
That's great.
I was talking to a principal the other day who had set up mentor groups by working with the high school. So it was a middle school, and went over to the high school who had a class that for kids that wanted to be teachers, and asked if they would be willing to mentor some kids that were struggling, and it worked. It supposedly was working really nicely. So
Awesome.
don't forget to look at your feeders or where you're going as a feeder.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, the data for teachers is you know one thing that is a challenge, and I continue to encourage our teacher to look at formative assessment data. Just do those daily checks using, you know, whatever tech tools you have available, or a half sheet of paper or whatever that is. Doing those formative checks to then provide that additional support for kids. Yeah. It's good stuff.
Decide and secure what data to collect. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Really making sure it gets in the right hands and not outside of those right hands is important. Good point. That idea of maximizing parapros. Yeah. Yeah.
That's huge. That's huge. Like I said, that was I think the turning point for us is once we did the time is finding those people resources to make sure that we're using those people effectively. Like I said, we found that we were having we had a lot of ex-teachers who were just parents that didn't want to put in, you know, the time to grade and to plan and all the other extra stuff. They just wanted to help and use their gifts. So we're really blessed to have those types of aides.
Well, you know, and all, I think, you know, I think back to when I was the principal, I had parents that I just didn't sometimes know what to do with. And if I had really thought about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, when you said that, like, that's brilliant. I should have been matching them up with students that needed assistance, because you're right. They all have areas of expertise that they could really be put to use beyond, like, here, manage the fundraiser, or,
Totally.
lead the PTO, but something that really impacts
Yeah.
student outcomes.
And
Yeah.
it's really, I mean, it's fulfilling too. I mean, to see kids get it. I mean, just like any teacher, when you watch kids move from confused to understanding, it's just very, very fulfilling.
Yeah, well, and there's a lot of probably retirees in neighborhoods too who might be looking to, come in and help, like a small reading group or
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty
All
neat.
right.
Okay.
Any final questions?
You can put it in the chat or the Q&A if you have anything that you'd like Brad to touch back on. I think you've given him lots of chance to interact. So
Yeah.
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 I'll let you know.
I'm just glad the tech worked, because,
Right.
never done it before. So.
Well, good job. Good job. Way to go for it.
Glad it worked. It's all about risk taking.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good deal.
Yeah.
If there's
So
nothing else.
yeah, any final words any words of wisdom you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's the passion and the desire to make sure that that kids are getting supported, and just thinking creatively. I think that's probably the biggest thing for us is thinking creatively, asking other people what they're doing, and just adapting it to what you have, and then using that data, that success, and that momentum to grow your support program. And I think that's kind of how we got here today. Is we continue to build, we continue to see success, we continue to be creative to get to a point, especially in our elementary school, and maybe less so in our high school, but I think we're making progress, and even in our middle school, is just continuing to build on the momentum that you've gained through seeing that student data and seeing that student growth.
Yeah, and I think what I heard you say, without saying it, is just celebrating those successes as you're getting, as you're seeing it happen, right? These small, little measurable goals. They say success breeds success, right?
That's right.
So after it, yeah.
That's right.
Great. Well,
Awesome.
thank you for those words, and thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
I know that's hard to get up in front of your peers and kind of share what you've been doing, but we really appreciate it.
Yeah.
If you want to forward through. So just as a reminder, we do post all of these on our YouTube channel. So I encourage you, if you've not already, to do subscribe to our YouTube channel. But there's information on there for administrators from the PCCs, but also for your teachers. There's small tips of the day. Lots of, there's one on Padlet that's on there. So if you want to learn a little bit more on how to use Padlet, there's one on polling softwares. So lots of good information on there, and even information for your students. So please do subscribe to that if you haven't already. And then Shonda already put into the chat, but we really do take your feedback seriously on these, and we do try to adjust what we're providing based upon what you say. So if you could take our survey, your presenter today was Brad Mitchell, so you'll choose him from the drop-down list, but your thoughts are really important, and your feedback is very important to us. So please do take a moment to do that. We so appreciate it. And so again, you can follow us on Twitter or Facebook, our YouTube channel. You can drop us an email if you're interested in anything, or if you have suggestions for future Principals Collaborative Community topics, please send them on in. There's even a link you can get right to my calendar right here, bit.ly CPD inquiry. So let us know if there's topics that you'd like to see in the future. Before you log off, just know how much we appreciate you. School leaders, you are the unsung heroes. You work hard and don't get a lot of credit for it. So know that as a former principal, I so appreciate the work that you do every single day. And I want you to hang in there. I hope that you all are staying safe and healthy and warm, for those of you that are in the cold climates. So we'll see you back here at the next one. We're actually going to be talking about, I think, some interesting stuff. So I'm going to pique your interest, and we're going to send you a follow-up email with some more information about that. But again, Brad, thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
And for the rest of you, have a wonderful day. Okay, everybody's logging out. Brad, thanks so much. We'll be in contact with you. Shonda will send you the survey results once she gets them back in, but
Great.
you know I'll be in contact.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks so much. Okay, thanks Shonda for your help today.